maybe you should take time to read the text and perhaps even sing it to yourself. Because if there is anything we need at this time as a nation, as citizens of our country, it is to take pride in the nation, by at least being interested in that, what the national anthem says. So there are those who believe that, no, I love Nigeria, but I don't like what the government is doing. That's fine. So how do we correct what the nation is doing? How do we course correct the nation if we don't go through the government? At least that's the only established authority that we have at this time, whether it's a federal government or the state governments. That is what we have at this time, including, you know, the local government systems. That's one hand. So that's one. So it's very, very important for us to have that spirit of patriotism, because whether you like it or not, the duties of the citizen, your duties as a citizen, they are very clear right there in Constitution. I think it's Section 24 spells out the duties of the citizen. Do you even know that you have duties? Okay, what has Nigeria done for me? That's great. At least you have a place you call home, and it is in Nigeria, whichever way we want to look at it. So can we at least, take pride in that and position ourselves to do our own bit? We may not be having the best of whatever it is that we want as a nation, but at least that is the nation that we have. We're not under any, we have our liberty, we have our freedom. What many people are able to do today, they were impossible in 1983, 84, 85, because we were under military rule at the time. We are not right now, so it is definitely something to be glad about, and I hope you also still take time to pray for the country. And talking about Nigeria, citizenship and all, hey, please also remember this one thing. It is International Youth Day today, and the nation is essentially really talking, the world is talking about green skills for the young people today. International Youth Day, people between ages 18 and 35, in this part of in our part of the world, would fall under the age, the category of youths. It's a little interesting and sometimes even disappointing what we are able to do for our young, whether or not we even have them in mind enough to do the needful things for them. And the young, please, I know there's some that I say, whether we want to see it that way or not, this generation has something that the older generation don't have. In my head, I usually say that the older generation in the 60s, those who campaigned for the independence of Nigeria, they had something their parents didn't have. They had education. Their parents didn't have education. That's why a host of them at the time were in their 20s and early 30s, if memory serves me right. So a good number of them had something that their parents had, and that was education. And with that, they were able to do things that their parents supported and, championed their cause, and they were able to push for the independence of Nigeria in the 50s into the 60s. And of course, we know everything that has come now. What do the young people have today? I don't know if you agree with me, but yes, the young people have technology. Come on, I've heard about, you may have also heard of one technology company started by young people that sold for 9 figures. Yes, 9 figures. Hundreds of millions of dollars. That's one thing that young people have. So is it something that the young people can galvanize themselves together to use in pushing for the new Nigeria that they want? The older generation did that in their own 20s and 30s. Can we have the same thing now for the 20s and for the young people in their 20s and 30s to begin to liberate Nigeria? It has started already. There is that argument, okay, well, we'll need government support to do things. I agree. But then perhaps that, you ask me, perhaps that is even overrated. Because please tell me, what government positioning or support or policy or whatever it is helped us to build the music industry to where it is today. Don't forget, the big labels left the nation in the 80s and 90s. They left. The Sony Musics of this world, the Premier Musics of this world, the Bouncy Music of this world, they left the country. There was no label until an indigenous, one or two indigenous music labels started, and then we have what we have now in the late 90s into the year 2000s. And now, look at Nigeria's music industry, shutting down stadia all over the world. Okay? So is there a way we can position young people so that they themselves will be able to say, we're taking hold of this one? The young people already took charge, control of the music industry. With how much government intervention, support, or whatever it is helped them to get there. They literally took leadership and said, we're going this way, and government is now proud of them. Same thing with the movie industry. A host of young people started that and are still playing in that space now. So I want to ask what's policy space or whatever it is that government is going to put in place for me to do anything. Young people, you got the power. Can you do it? Go ahead and do what it is. Don't worry, young people. Those the governments, all the ones, they're going to catch up. They will catch up with you. But for you, I would say, get off get on your feet. Do whatever you need to do, make this nation great for yourself, because whether we like it or not, there's only one. Only one Nigeria for all of us, and it is one that we have to do whatever we need to do about. And one of the things that we will do first is make this economy better. And that's the number one item on our menu today. Quick recovery of the economy. How are we going to do that? What are the steps that needs to be taken to help us get the economy on its track? That's the first thing. Of course, we'll be talking about the International Youth Day, and that's the second item, green skills for the youth. Find out what that is all about later on today. Then there is Arrows of God, the documentary. What's that about? Find out when we get into that conversation. Ensuring inclusive governance, a missed opportunity, having that conversation again. On Lifestyle Today, we're continuing that series on self-healing habits, and the focus this morning is mindsets. How does your mindset help you to heal yourself? Very, very interesting conversation it promises to be. And our Artist of the Week will be the final item on the agenda as usual. And please just, I don't know whether to tell you to get ready to go to the National Assembly for the Artist of the Week today, but hey, we're going to get there when we do get there. So in the next few seconds, we're getting into the thick of the show. Get your cup of cocoa, or is it cocoa, whichever one takes your fancy, and we'll be right back. We'll take you on to stay with us. It has been reported that in the medium term, in the short term, Nigerians will remain embattled with higher petrol and food prices due to the recent reforms. As of June 2023, inflation was 22.8%, aggressively eroding a consumer disposable income, which grew by a tiny average of 0.1% between 2018 and 2022, compared to a 6% growth from 2011 to 2015. Now, when we talk about inflation, where it's when the cost of living in general increases over time. That's what inflation is about. When money, more money is injected into the balloon, that is the balloon of the economy, it expands and the price level rises. A rise in the money supply or the amount of money in circulation is one of the primary causes of inflation. So how do we get out of this doldrum and make life a little better for Nigerians? We have two gentlemen joining us this morning for this conversation. Olugbenga Adeoye is a chartered accountant, founder and principal partner at Gbenga Adeoye & Co. He joins us from our studio in Abuja, as well as Charles Iyore, who is chairman of Dion and Associates, joining us virtually from Kent in the UK. Thank you so much for joining us, gentlemen. Let me begin with you, Mr. Adeoye. So, what exactly are we battling with now? The most dire of these challenges is how the policies of government is biting at the disposable income that people have to spare at any given time. From your assessment, general assessment of how this has hit on people up until now, how do you think people are coping with it, biting as it is?
Well, I think the topic that you've chosen for Sunrise today is a wonderful topic because you're talking about a quick recovery. And so the adjective quick is a sensitive one and a very serious one in the minds of Nigerians. Now, let's look at the situation with our country at the moment. The first problem we have is that removal of fuel subsidy has created problem for people because what we have now is cost push inflation as a result of transportation costs. The second thing is that energy requires that you buy petroleum product. And so you don't have a choice. It's not optional for you to buy petroleum product. Either you buy PMS or you buy the diesel, because you either need to move around or you need it to power your generator in your house. Now, the other policy of government is the unification of the foreign exchange, where you now have dollar going to about 1,000 naira to $1. And that's a very critical situation. Now, let me come to say that the problem Nigerians are facing is not only because of the policy, but because of information dissemination management of the government. And I will explain that to you. Let me start by saying that also understanding the mixture of policy. And I would explain that with two techniques. Number one is crop production technique. Number two is financial management, strategic financial management technique. In crop production, there's what we call cash crop, and there's what we call food crop. So government policy to succeed must come along with cash crop policy and food crop policy. Now, for those who study crop production in agriculture, if you have cash crop on the farm and you do not have food crop, two things will happen. Number one, the sun is going to kill the cash crop if you don't have food crop. Like you can have plantain, lettuce, and some other vegetables planted on this same farm to protect the cash crop, because the gestation period is longer. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So the mistake that the government has made is to forget that the cash crop policies ought to go pari passu with food crop policy. The second benefit of a food crop policy is that those that are in charge of the farm, that are meant to maintain the farm, they must survive during the gestation period. So if you don't have food to eat, you don't have vegetable, you don't have rice, you don't have beans, you are not going to take care of the cash crop. So what happens is that the farm becomes overgrown, and then it choke up the cash crop, and then it dies off. Now, the second thing is policy pronouncement. The issue of unification of the foreign exchange policy, in my considered opinion, was not communicated the proper way. In a developing economy, you look at what pushes the behavior of the people, and then you don't do the same thing with what they do in a company, in a country that is already developed. Now, let me explain that briefly. You have the cat and you have the horse. Now, in a country that is developing, like Nigeria, the cart is empty or is not properly filled up. Why the horse is the government. Now, when a country is not well developed, the cart responds to every movement of the horse because the cart is empty. There is nothing there, seriously, and that's talking about the fact that we've not reached optimal production level in the economy. So any policy pronouncement of government is going to make the cart to begin to move with speed. And that's what you see with the dollar. Now, I will explain that. Unfortunately, when a country has not reached optimal level, so you have governments having a lower exchange rate and then the parallel market having a higher one, even though the horse is ahead and the cart is behind, but the rate is higher behind because it has not reached optimal production level. Now, when you look at developed economies, what happens there is that the cart is loaded with economic activities, so whatever the government does is going to be the government responding to what is happening, and that's what we call market forces. So the market forces actually drag the horse backward, and the horse, which is the government, is looking at the economy, looking at the market forces and saying, okay, what are you guys up to? What is happening here? And government tried to bring something to move to your level. But on the side of a country that is not yet at optimal level, whatever government says is what affects the market forces. So contrary to what government thought. Now, what government ought to have done on the foreign exchange policy, which is not too late to do, is that they ought to have discussed with the central bank and the commercial bank and say, look, guys, we don't have enough resources. We are not going to say that we are increasing our rate, but all that we are going to do is to only provide forex for essential commodity, materials that are imported to run the economy, that are compulsory. No noise about it. You just fill Form M, you apply for the forex, you don't get it given to you, there's no noise about it. Only those who are qualified will get it. And so there is no information getting into the public that right now the central bank is doing 768. And so the black market says, okay, let's jack our own forward. All right, but, apart from that, government ought to have also said,
yeah. My apologies,
put
Mr.
all the dollars that you have in your bank account, no restriction, we don't have problem.
Okay, well, there's a lot, actually. I mean, I don't know if Mr. Iyori agrees with this. There are those who say there are many ways to skin a cat, and government has gone through this particular route, painful or not. There are various reactions to this. On the one hand, you have even Nigerian economists, in different parts of the world saying that, there are some, institutions from across the world who are praising and thumbing up the initiatives of the federal government so far. And then there are those who are still saying, wow, well, maybe the policies are good, but aren't we rushing too many things at the same time, given the impact it's having on people? It's a catch-22 of sorts, or what do you think?
Thank you very much, Makinde, for conducting these questions, basically. Well, I like the perspective that my colleague is taking, which is from the consumer. But I think to a large extent, which is what does a man on the street feel? To a large extent, it's good to see the full picture. And you've made a few notes to all of that stuff. And I've heard the president say the poor must breathe. But actually, it's not only the poor that are not breathing in Nigeria. All of us are not breathing. And you need to know how that has come about. So first of all, governors, for example, it's like you ask them to go to the kitchen to prepare the food for you. You get to the kitchen, there's no gas, there's no water, there's no stove, nothing, the windows are all blown apart. So for you to begin to do anything at all, it's almost akin to a doctor's surgery. You need to make sure that the place where you work is appropriate. That's the first thing you need to do. Another one that the government may have also found is that the task of campaigning for election, no matter how brutal it is nothing in terms of pressure compared to what it is to run the state. And I think Margaret Thatcher found that out when she was trying to make changes to an established system. And very often, those who believe they are in the system think they own the rights to it, and very quickly took over the rights of the sovereign, whose best interest is to make sure that his people do very well and there is prosperity. So now, having said that, before we put that into perspective, you need to know where are the missteps you have taken that has taken out to this place, which is the stone that we have on our necks that needs to be ruled over. The first stone was put there when we did Docu Award, an award that was done without relation to productivity at all. And that meant that you sowed the seed of inflation, which we haven't come out of. The second one, we said that you wanted to indigenize. And indigenize, you're having the management skills, nor the capacity to run those companies, which is just, it's not a corner shop. So again, that's another stone that rolled on top of us. The third stone was that you began to deregulate in the sense of closing down markets, commodity markets and stuff like that. So the linkages between the cities and the countryside has totally disappeared. And the final straw, which we started fighting in 1980, was they decided that this money in circulation should be taken care of by selling the dollar. So basically, you didn't have a foreign exchange market. Now, the president has said, I asked for this job, so I'm going to try and sort it out myself. But he needs to be certain that he's not taken captive, just like 256 economists took Margaret Thatcher captive. And I think, if you ask me, not 100 days yet, I think they've done fairly well. They've taken the bold moves, and after taking those bold moves, they have to make sure the adjustments are right. And then, like you said earlier, because all of these big stones are on us and they need to be rolled off, the administrative structures have stopped to function. And the levers of control of the economy, whether in the central bank, in the Ministry of Finance, or elsewhere, no longer have a response when you pull them. Those are the key issues. And if we can ask a broad, calling a broad position, ask for a lot of position papers before the decisions are made, so you don't rush into play. But if you ask me, I think the correct table stay the course while you're still trying to fix the kitchen and put the food on the table is commendable. That's where I can say for now. I'll wait for 100 days to say in clear terms whether there's a definite direction for the economy or not.
Well, you began by talking about the difficulty the chef is having in the kitchen. That's right. And there is no doubt that, the chef has already quite found out that, look, even though I made the promise and I shouldn't pity me, I know that it's a very, very turbulent kitchen. I know that there are scarce resources in the kitchen. And I know that the hungry populace is waiting for whatever it is. They are already hungry. But you began by talking about also the fact that while Mr. Adeoye was talking about the consumer side and all of that, you were looking at the man on the street. Mr. Adeoye also spoke about the difficulty of communicating these difficult decisions to the populace. I want you to espouse as much as you can on how well that has been done in the past less than 100 days in office of this government. How well would you say people agree with the policies? I'm talking about the man on the street. How tolerant they can be, given that almost every government that comes into office is asking them to be patient, to be tolerant, and now this is what we have now.
Well, I think the fact that the president comes out all the time, even if he's doing it well or not doing well, telling you where he's going, whether you agree or don't agree at all, that's a very good beginning. Now, if you look at the State of the Nation address by the American president, there are structures to it. And it looks at all the demographics of society, looks at the aged, looks at those who are in the working class, whether they're skilled enough, and they release what they call the unemployment figures, and then the capacity to train the younger ones to take over from those who are already working. That is how the schools work, how skills, how the community colleges are working and stuff like that. So once that structure sets in, and I think the president will make sure that sets in over time, and then he begins to say, over all of these things, how do we then work to ensure that the infrastructure or the tools of production are in place? All of this picture will become clearer. Also, I think to a large extent, there's always a linkage because money is not on its own. Money links both to production and your tax rate. Once all of these begin to get clearer, then maybe we can begin to work rather quickly. Now, we must also admit that despite all this pain, a time was there when we had prosperity to share. When companies from as far away as Congo came to buy textiles in Nigeria, when we were able to support the what do you call them again, we're frontline states to South Africa. Now, all those points I told you earlier on, all those points of misstep, destroy that capacity to either build prosperity at home or share it abroad as a power of influence rather than bullets. So those are the key issues. And I think that, like I told you, like Margaret Thatcher found out, campaigning itself is a small part. Working through with the system of a strong and powerful bureaucracy set in its ways that is just the beginning of the issue.
Well,
thank you.
Well, I'm hoping that just as you said, the Nigerian will be able to understand that. Mr. Adeyeye, let me come back to you now. A number of issues have been raised and all of that. You highlighted the fact that we talked about quick recovery. Just yesterday, less than 24 hours now, the president was also at a meeting and saying, look, we have to get this economy out of the doldrums for the benefit of the greater number of Nigerians. So that fact is not lost on the president. How quickly do you think that can be? And what do you think a government should be giving to the people? What do you think the people should be getting from government in terms of communication to ensure that they are able to buy into it? Otherwise, I don't know where we'll find ourselves. So how quickly do you think this can happen? Okay. And what should Nigerians expect so that they are not expecting too much too soon and then be disappointed?
I think within the next 90 days, if the government is able to roll out what I call food crop policies, so that the cash crop policies can be protected. Like I said earlier, I also said that the problem is not with the policies, because once this policy reaches their gestation period, we're going to reap the reward. But the problem is that we must survive during this period. And so one major decision the government needs to take is to manage the capitalists who are speculative in creating crisis in the economy. Just like my colleague said there, you realize that as a government, you may be held captive by the people that are affected by the policy you're bringing out. So, quick one. For example, essential raw materials that are brought into the country, Nigerian Customs Service came up with a valuation method that they are going to value it at a new rate, 770 naira to $1. I think this is going to impact negatively in the manufacturing sector. Remember that they source foreign exchange at a high rate to get the materials into the country. At first, they pay interest to get the loans from whichever bank they get it. And so when they bring it and they are now to pay duty, it's important for us to more or less, in my own view, to maintain the status quo ante, such that people can breed, just like Mr. President said. So that is one way. The poor masses, they are not interested in all the economic jargons we speak. They are not interested in the inflation figure you're talking about. They are asking, how much can I get a bread in the market? How much can I get noodles? I happen to be the chairman of a company. One line of product is bread. And the managing director called me 2 days ago and said, there is crisis. How are we going to fix prices for our bread and other products? Because flour was moving from 20-something thousand to 30,000 to 32 to 34 to 35 and now 38. And to get a trailer load of flour, you need about 22-point-something million. So the staple food you see with the poor masses is bread and beans, rice, and then these things are no longer affordable. So what else can you give to the people? They have problem with energy because there is no power supply around the country adequately. So
but
they need to
you,
buy
you also agree, Mr. Adeoye, pardon me for butting in.
People must buy.
Pardon me for butting. You also agree, like many, economists, have discussed it, that look, there are difficult decisions that need to be taken, and unless those difficult decisions are taken, there is no hope anywhere. So that's why I'm asking, for how long do you think people should be patient, and what kind of communication should government be pushing out in order to buy their confidence?
As a matter of fact, when you have crises like this, government needs to be flexible in all the policies. So you've got to do regular meeting with stakeholders and say, what are the major problems with our people? What can we adjust? We are not saying, oh, return subsidy. No. But we're saying, look, what best can we do? Can we quickly get buses for all the states, all the senatorial districts? If we cannot get all at the same time, can we have 50 buses quickly? What is the delivery time? And you communicate to the citizen that, look, you don't have to drive around.
So it goes back to what you said the other time.
Number of vehicles will arrive.
It goes back to what you said earlier about the intervention that government has already announced. How soon it gets to the people, perhaps that's the challenge here. Mr. Yore, Mr. Adeoye just spoke about communication with critical stakeholders. One of the critical stakeholders are the governors. 50% of them, plus or minus, are new, first-time governors in office. 50% of them are, of course, returning and also. Do you think the collaboration between federal and state governments have begun? Because perhaps some will be wondering, if that collaboration has begun, how come we're not hearing of it? And if it has begun and we're not hearing of it, does that mean that the palliatives or whatever initiatives of governments to make life, at least ease life a little for the people, does that mean that we still have to wait a little longer? How do you think that engagement with governors at the states level need to go? We've only had, I think, to the best of my knowledge, maybe just one NEC meeting so far.
Most people have done things. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Go ahead.
For a long, long time, most people have done are used to doing things in a dark way. And so when a new light shines into play, the sheer lights of it frightens them and they go back into the darkness. So you need to be able to sustain what you're doing now. But the fact to come to play that judicious use of resources is critical. Now, on the quick right, what I say basically that there are more multilateral agencies than IMF and the World Bank. We belong to a lot of few trade groups. And we can use a lot of the influence in multilateral groups to bring in products and prices and ensure that our goods go out in good time to help international trade. Also, when you talk about privatization, it's actually a pivoting between what the Treasury gives and what the capital market supplies. If you do not pivot triply between what you think is a burden of the Treasury and what can go into commercial private sector activities through the capital market, the burden of the government is going to remain very high and push it all down. I see the way we're trying to acquire buses, electric buses, for example, as maybe not taking advantage of what can happen through capital markets. And then, of course, what is essential is that we realize that the issue of managing currency is a very specialist thing. You need a well-twisted and informed treasurer to manage the crisis that we have with the currency that is depreciating. And we've been saying this one since 1988. It's not just for anyone to come and say, you read that, you read that. This is actually the skills of a champion sportsman. We need to find out who these strong currency managers are that can get it out of the woods. Because once you sort the currency problem, many other things will fall into play. That's my take, but again, I'm not on the advisory board. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Yore, it sounds to me like something that will gladden the hearts of small businesses, MSMEs generally. And I'll take you both on this, but taking you first, Mr. Yore. So far, policies of government, how is it, in your opinion, faring on government? Please take it in the light of the announcement that the federal government made, both when declaring the emergency on food security and that's, speech that presidential broadcast, the last presidential broadcast, where a number of initiatives were announced.
Well, just like my colleague already said, it is essential that you realize that more than 60% of the food produced in this country, including some that comes naturally, goes to waste. So the process for getting that food into production is critical. And that has to be done almost immediately for you to make sure that the countryside begins to live again. And then you also realize that most of these shopping malls you see in America and the rest of the world, like Walmart and the rest of them, all of that food you see there is actually through the cooperatives that are sending them in, and they don't get paid until the end of the cycle, just like McDonald's does that. But like I've told you, these really are things I think that those who are in the coterie of advisors are most really looking at. All I will say is that just like the Jews did and Italians did, they should see how well they can bring in some of those who are outside, not to be in office as commissioners or ministers, to send in position papers, perspectives of what needs to be done to get out of this quickly. I think you just continue to mix up the ideas. Because if you say you did this way, we really haven't had an economy since 1960, because the situation where more than 70% or 80% of us don't get a take-home pay that takes them home, it's not an economy. So the burden is not light. But I think it's essential to have a structured way so that not everybody comes in to make all the noise and then just see and be seen, and then at the end of the day, nothing gets done. We must walk our talk.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dewey, same issue. I mean, also glad to know that you chair the board of a small business. Do you think those initiatives that government announced are significant in any way at all to instill some confidence in the micro, small, and medium enterprises sector?
Well, it's difficult to say whether this is enough, adequate, or inadequate. There is something that the government needs to do that will cut across all entrepreneurs, small and medium-scale enterprises across the country. I spoke about the need for single-digit credit that was announced by the government. Apart from finding a way to provide credit facilities for existing businesses, we also must see how we can fund new ideas so that we can reduce the exodus of our people from the country. Because capacity building is not something that is easy to do. People have gone to polytechnics, colleges of education, universities, and then they are moving in masses out of the country because they don't have jobs. This is an emergency that we also need to address and call young people from age 25 to 35. Come up with ideas. At every state level, the governors need to get involved, all the regions. No region will be left behind. You look at the comparative advantage. You say, if you are from the Northwest, what can you do about leather production, meat production, ranching? You go to the Southeast, you begin to ask them questions about manufacturing, technology, shoe making, shirt making. You come to the Southwest, and you begin to talk about skill, IT skill of our people, and say, how do we fund these people? And you go around the state and say, every state we're taking 100 young men that will create employment. And so people will see seriousness in government and sense of belonging. Government must not make vague statements that we're going to do X, Y, Z. You have to put timeline, mention the people that are implementing, the agencies that are doing it, and telling us specific date. And if they don't perform, you fire them.
Okay.
So these are issues.
Okay. Well,
if you look at the rate at which we
you made some salient points just now. Forgive me for butting in. You made some salient points, and now I'd like you to address this within the next 1 minute. How do we begin to build trust all over again? Because no matter how fantastic the policies of government are, if the people do not trust it, they will not be able to follow, going by what you described just now. Oh, government said 100 of us should come. They will just take it with a pinch of salt. We heard this before. So how do we build that trust? If you can do this in 60 seconds or less.
Actually, to be trusted, you have to carry the people that are affected along. That's the only way to be trusted. As a family man, you call your wife and children, these are the plans, what do you think about this? If we do this, what will be the result? And then they bring their input, and then we set agenda and we implement. But if you just sit down somewhere and you say, this is what we're doing, without carrying the stakeholders along, you cannot be trusted.
Okay. Mr. Ayore, same question to you, particularly young people. How do we ensure that we carry the young people along in a way that they can trust government all over again? Because we know that that's been depreciated over the years.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Makinde. I told you earlier on how all the production linkages were broken. Docu, I gave you the whole line of it. Now, basically, MSME is not just a big bang idea, Apple computer or wherever, or art and craft, design and all that. MSMEs actually are you embedding the activities of the producers into the industrial value chain. For example, I used to run a foundry for Guinness, Coca-Cola, Nigerian breweries, and Cadbury's, and that's very many years ago. And then because I couldn't get the spare parts, I then shifted into financial services. There are still very many things that can be produced. You see, when you talk about the American system, for example, there is a production line. Even if you're going to make a bed, the one who's going to produce the top and the one who's going to produce the bottom. And because they're producing all those small units and in large numbers, the efficiency of production and the value of what is produced makes them competitive. Now, on their own, they cannot do that. But if the government creates a framework for that to happen, then it becomes easier for you to take all of that in. Okay. We try to achieve some of that through the kind of education they offer, but the system in itself must see that the embedding of small production into the value chain is what MSME must rest on, not just big bang ideas or arts and crafts. Thank you.
Quite a lot to take in, gentlemen, and I want to, it's a quick recovery conversation, and it's been done so quickly. Charles, you're a chairman of Dion and Associates. Thank you so much for joining us. Joined us all the way from Kent in the UK, as well as Olugbenga Adeoye, who is a chartered accountant, founder and principal partner at Gbenga Adeoye & Co. Thank you so much for being here, for offering us this counsel.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Yeah. So when we return, green skills for the youth. How? Do stay with us.
University Abuja, we achieved giant strides, impacted lives, strengthened partnerships, and delivered world-class education to our students. As we surge ahead on our mission to transform education in Africa, we are enthusiastic and adrenalized for the future, as you know you are also.
Philomath University. Unlock your dreams.
Where's Glory?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Hello? Where's Glory now?
I did you.
Glo don't go village, tell all our customer abi.
Everybody pay attention. See, now Glo berekete 10x. Now him I they take tension my customers. Now they dash me 10 times the credits when I load. Or even summer me double data join.
Yeah. Wait, so with 1.5 when they give all of us, so you they enjoy up to 15,000 naira credit and data.
And I say I never finish you. See, when I say if we enjoy, if when I join Glo berekete 10x, when I go get 1,000 naira welcome credits. You just carry your phone, dial star 777 hash. Finish.
Glo, you don't win.
Una see dey here. Hello, please, I'm looking for Glo. Please save now Glo we dey find. Now Glo we dey go. Okay, so
enjoy 10 times the value of your recharge on Glo berekete 10x. You also get 1,000 naira for calls and data and double data bonus on your subscription.
We are passionate about two things in Nigeria. The first is football. The second is our rice. And nobody celebrates like a Nigerian. So, for every goal scored, every mark made, you can be sure to always come back home to rice. Celebrate with Nigerian Premium Big Bowl Rice. Homegrown just like you. Big Bowl Rice. Tasty rice. Nourished you.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
Tell you about Safari Valley Eco Resort, the first of its kind in West Africa. Upon your arrival, you are introduced to your butler, who plans your itinerary.
We were surrounded by wildlife from the moment we entered the eco park.
So many activities, all in the same premises. Visit the gym or the stables, they have it all. At my break, I'm able to practice my putting.
We also went fishing on a man-made canal. Our tour guides taught us so much about the wildlife and how to interact with them.
They used only electric vehicles here. This creates a serene environment. I'm told it's over 1,000 acres. My cabin here sits on 2 acres with a large terrace space overlooking my private swimming pool. Now this is royalty. They have their own farms, thousands of fruit trees. I can also have my lunch here at the waterfall. Quite a beautiful place you have here.
Visit Safari Valley Eco Resort in Ghana, bringing you closer to nature.
The words are hard to find, but they're still heavy on my mind tonight. Is deep inside, but I still want to hide. Happy birthday!
Is this what you really want to do?
Yes, Dad. That's what I've been trying to show you.
Fight for your dreams the advanced way with Glo LTE Advanced, the power of 3 data networks in one. Get a Glo SIM or dial star 301 hash.
It's International Youth Day. Every August 12, a special day recognized by the United Nations to bring attention to the issues impacting young people globally. Green skills for youth towards a sustainable world. That's the theme for this year's International Youth Day. And the United Nations believes that this transformation towards a future that is both ecologically sustainable and climate friendly is of utmost importance. It is crucial to achieve the objectives listed, as well as an immediate response to the urgent global climate catastrophe, among a number of other things. And, because generally when we speak about young people in Nigeria, the first thing that comes to mind is education. But, let's have conversation around this International Youth Day of 2023 with two gentlemen joining us this morning. Dr. Shadi Sabe is Vice Chancellor, Iconic Open University in Sokoto State. He's also Chairman, Board of Directors, Brilliant Footsteps International Academy in Sokoto. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Sabe.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. We also have with us in our Abuja studio Aziz Salau, who is Executive Director, Community Action for Food. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Good morning.
Dr. Sabe, let me begin with you. International Youth Day 2023, August 12, been celebrated for quite a while now. What is your take on our general approach to everything young people in the country, particularly education?
Year in, year out, we celebrate different days, and the focus today is the International Youth Day. Particularly in Nigeria, I think there's a lot we should be happy about. The fact that we're breathing, we're living in peace, so to say. However, I would like to fast track, from the goodies about being young people to the challenges that we face. And in a very, fast perspective, I think the Nigerian youth has not been exposed to a more challenging time, in the trajectory of our nation's history than now. We have a youth population that is vast when you look at the demography. However, when you talk about youth participation in every strata, all the signals are down. So despite the fact that we are happy to celebrate such a day, I think it's more of, to me, an opportunity to reflect on how far, thus far, so far, for young people in terms of global best practices of, our aspirations as young people, where we are and where we should be, pitched against, our colleagues across the globe, everywhere in the world, where you have young people actually making waves in virtually all sectors of the economies of different nations. We have to look inward and challenge ourselves to become vanguards of progress, development that is sustainable, and to see how we ensure that, young people are empowered. The young people account for, the think tank of society. They account for the oil that fuels development and progress in any society, and Nigeria is no exception. So I think the National Youth Day is an opportunity for us to reflect on this, the contribution, that we can give as young people, and how we can make sure that, we do attain that in global standards, not just a localized perspective. So for me, I think, it's about, challenging ourselves to actually take our rightful place in society as young Nigerians to make sure we contribute to our nation's development.
Mr. Salau, your opening comments as well, but if you can, focus on whether or not you think we have, that young people even feel like their nation has something for them, that their nation factors them in. Irrespective whether or not the state governments or federal government is giving any due attention, young people are doing their thing in fintech, in music, in the entertainment, in movies, in comedy, all over the nation and all. So do you think that there is a general belief by the youth population in Nigeria that government actually has anything planned out for them?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. I mean, the International Youth Day is celebrated every year, and I think this year is really, really unique for us because of the issues around climate change, and also, on the other hand, on how young people have been able to, bring themselves outside to do a lot of things for themselves across different sectors. And straight to your question, I think it's a two-way thing, because if we can actually say that, yeah, the enabling environment that is actually needed for young people to actually thrive, it is not really being created by the government. And when I talk about the government, I'm not talking about the government at the national level. We are actually talking about the government and also the government at the subnational level, because everything actually happens at the different states and also local governments and also other localities. So I think for this International Youth Day, it is a call for our leaders, our government, to actually do more in terms of creating enabling environment. There are a lot of policies. That have been in place that has not been really favorable to young people, especially in terms of businesses, people that are doing businesses, not only people that are doing white collar jobs. So I think our government needs to do more in terms of creating enabling environment. And when it comes to creating enabling environment, there are different sectors. Let different commissioners and in different states, local government chairmen, take the leadership and also see how they can also bring young people on board, because there's a lot of isolation, there's a lot of gap, and I strongly believe that it is only young people that can actually bridge this gap. Let us see how they can bring young people on the table to work together collectively, to achieve tangible results. And whether you like it or not, there is no sustainability plan without inclusion of young people in any process. So we really don't want to be beneficiaries again. There are a lot of planning, there are a lot of process that takes place in planning a lot of things. Let us see how they can bring in young people into these rooms, decide together, let young people bring their fresh perspective, their fresh innovations and innovative ideas to a lot of discussions around policies and engagement within the spheres of government. And also other young people that are already close to the government, let them see how they can identify talents, let them come together and identify their own think tanks of other young people across different sectors to work together, to channel a sustainable pathway for the leaders in the states. Because we understand that the governor or maybe the top person cannot actually see a lot of things that are happening, but they have people around them. They even have children at home that listen or tell them a lot of things that need to be done. So there is need for young people to really feel that sense of belonging. Let us rub minds together. We understand the approach of intergenerational approach. So let's see how young people can actually work together with young people with their leaders to come out with sustainable solutions, for a better future we all clamor for. And the future starts from now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, the future perhaps started maybe 10 years ago, But, in terms of the language of communication when it comes to climate change and the rest of them, don't you think there is a need for some simpler or more acceptable, or if I dare say, sustainable communication, system for young people, particularly in terms of climate change and other sustainable or sustainability conversations? One of the reasons which I asked that question is that there are at least 5 things that describe copiously what green skills for youth stand for. Number one of them is, when we talk about green skills, we're talking about knowledge, abilities, values, and attitudes needed to live in, develop, and support a sustainable and resource-efficient society. How do we communicate that to young people in a way that they don't even need government to initiate this by themselves?
Yeah, I think it's quite easy, because a lot of young people are already taking a lot of things into for themselves already. So talking about all those green skills, when we talk about green skills, it's diverse across different sectors. We have green streak in the energy sector, in the agricultural sector, we have it in the environment sector, and all these things are just what is rightly needed. So like I said, communicating them to young people it's quite easy. Get other young people that are doing these things and let them be the one to pass the information to other people. And this is where TOT and other mechanisms comes in, to train people around. If it is around renewable energy, let's train people how to build solar panels and see how they can actually use it to enrich and empower their community. Talking about sustainable agriculture, we have different vertical and urban farming practices. We have the hydroponics and aeroponics that can, that young people can actually, leverage on to make ends meet. These are green skills, and also passing the information, building their capacity, especially people in the rural community. Language should not be a challenge because these things can easily be translated to different languages and get the people in the community or locality, train them for them to train other people, to embrace these green skills. We have the circular economy. We have recycling of different things. We have upcycling. We have a lot of materials that could easily be used in different localities to train young people. Let them see how they can support other people that are doing this already to pass the message to other young people. It's actually very important for them to do that. So with this, passing the information using a young person as a medium, to communicate to another young person, it's going to be very, very easy. So it's just for them to create the enabling environment, support in their own capacity as leaders, and also for young people to also continue to build their skills around these green skills. Is also very important for us to pass this information. There are a lot of projects and activities there. For example, the AACJ project in collaboration with NIMET,
Mr. Salau,
pass climate information.
Forgive me. All these issues that you have raised, quite salient and all of that. But there is this other issue, on one of the 5 things that I mentioned. And let me ask Dr. Sabe, who is more into the education space. One of the issues also raised, one of the 5 things that people need to know about green skills for youth, is that there are disparities that must be addressed. For instance, the technology divide. Right? 67% of youth, according to information put out by the United Nations, do not have digital skills due to the lack in basic resources. So there's that technology divide. There is also the education divide. Less than the half of NDCs, about 45% of them, can even talk about green skills development, for themselves. So that disparity needs to be addressed. A situation where 67% of youth do not have access to digital skills because they don't have the basic resources. Is there any way you think we can breach that within the shortest possible time, starting with this International Youth Day 2023?
Yes, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for us to voice out on the need to strike on the foundations of our problems and not just the surface. I don't think it's enough for us to concentrate on, building skills, training programs, and ad hoc solutions to entrenched problems that we face. When you talk about 67% of our youth, not having technology education, digital education, I think we should go back to the basics. What's happening to our education system? What's the curriculum at the basic level, post-basic level, at the tertiary level? Have we not, become tired of the same complaints day in, day out, year in, year out? And we tend to fix this problem at the end of a Nigerian's, would I say, ultimate educational, career. So you have a Nigerian graduate who has a BSc in something and is still, contributing to that vast 67%, we're talking about. And we now begin to, want to solve the problem after an educational journey of an individual. I think for me, in the education space, we need to go back to the curriculum. And I keep on trying to voice this out. We need to stop wasting time on the letters, the numbers, the road system. We need to go back to hands-on skills. We need to expose our kids at different levels of, basic, post-basic, and tertiary education. We cannot continue to talk about sources of water, rain, well, and so on. We have to take these kids to the next level. And I want to tell you that this is not an issue of let's take the low-hanging fruit. Technology at our education system is the low-hanging fruit. We need to work on our curriculum, make sure that we churn out graduates who have been exposed to digital skills, who have been exposed to technology. I mean, it's not rocket science for us to say from SS1 to SS3. Physics should be taught in a way. We have STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It takes you just 2 weeks to expose a 13-year-old child to embedded systems, artificial intelligence, enough for him to build a mini toy solar-powered car. So we have to expose our kids, not to our world, but to their world. Our world is enough a challenge for us in trying to meet up with the realities on the ground. But I think I don't know who's going to listen, who we need to talk to, but I want to tell you that the present.
Oh dear. I'm certain that Dr. Sabi will return to us in a bit. But Mr. Salau, there's also this one item on that list of 5 that I mentioned the other time. The youth will experience significant changes in economic opportunities. That's one of the green skills, points that I mentioned the other time. Why? According to information from the UN as well, climate change is threatening 40% of all jobs that are heavily reliant on a healthy environment. By 2030, 8.4 million jobs will be created for young people by the green transition, and for each green job, 1.4 more jobs are created. So green jobs lead to more jobs. How do we catalyze this? Not just from the perspective of policy or from the end of policy, but from the end of execution of those policies along the 3 tiers of government that we have in the nation.
Yeah, I think it is actually very, very simple and straightforward. The 3 tiers of government need to be up and doing, and not waiting for maybe the federal to do what is going to happen in the state. Let them coordinate themselves and engage people that are already doing this thing. There are a lot of young people upcycling, doing a lot of innovative green jobs. They can bring them on board and see how they can also use that to train people. The issue of ICT is also very key, but then there is need for the government to identify the real people that are doing all these things, see how they can work together collaboratively, and use this to empower people within their community. Whether we like it or not, we are looking at achieving 2030 SDGs by 2030, but then there's need for every one of us to be to work together collectively to achieve this purpose. In terms of the federal government, let them work on policies that would drop down to the state government and see how the state government and their national assemblies would be willing, to do the right thing. There are a lot of allocations that need to be, pushed to these skills for other people and people in their states and the community to benefit directly. And with that, when they benefit directly and they are doing this, these skills, they are doing it perfectly. They are able to and willing, to pass it across to other people across the local governments. Let them work together collectively with this, with their other stakeholders in this, and see how we can, work collectively, adaptively. There are adaptive measures we can actually use. It's very simple. Let us see how we can work collectively together to achieve this common goal. Because whether we like it or not, the young people would continue to graduate from schools. They'll continue to graduate from secondary schools and universities, and these technical skills are what they need. And this is where our opportunity of green skills comes in, to channel different job opportunities for young people. Let them see how they can work together with people that are already in the business and for them to, open a space for other young people, to come on board, train them, retrain them, and also get, some livelihood from there. I think this is the only solution across the three tiers of government in Nigeria.
That's a solution that you just mentioned raises another question altogether. Again, sticking with UN data from the UN, Dr. Sabi, let me come back to you because it's in your space, education. Skills demand is exceeding supply. Skills demand is exceeding supply. And what we understand is that 60% of young people will lack the skills necessary to thrive in the green economy in 2030. A reminder to everyone, 2030 is less than 7 years from now. I mean, we're talking about year 2030 in 2015 like it's like a millennia away. But hey, it's just 7 years from now. Add 7 years to your age, and that is when we have to rethink the SDGs. So in this light, Dr. Sabe, what do we need to do? It will seem like, you've spoken about, ad hoc solutions to entrench or endemic problems the other time, but this is another one. In the next 7 years, 60% of young people will not be able to thrive in the green economy because they lack the skills. So what do we need to do urgently and sustainably?
You're talking about 2010, 60% of our youth would not be relevant in that regard. And I think that's really worrisome. For me, it's simple. We need to commonize high-end skills. And how do we do that? We have, according to the National Universities Commission, we have close to 2 million undergrads. It's not going to take us one semester to emphasize on, what we need for the future of this country in terms of the capacity of our potential graduates. Now, I'm focusing on education because I think that's a low-hanging fruit solution for us if we want to make a formidable and, relevant, lousy achievement in that regard. We need to embark on what I call a skills needs assessment of the future. We just peep into the future and try to understand globally where is the world going to, and identify, what we need to incorporate in our education system such that automatically, when this is done, we focus on giving young people these skills at the basic level, either at post-basic or tertiary level, in such a way that the curriculum is tweaked to make it possible for us to come out of these, dangerous trends that we are looking at. Secondly, I think we have to emphasize on a growth mindset for our young people, because we can't push government to work on a flexibility of the curriculum such that our curriculum needs to be evolving. We need to peep into what is necessary for development and bring it on board, to expose our students to. Now, aside that, we have to emphasize on a growth mindset for our young people. We can't wait for government policy in curriculum maneuvering. We can't wait for government. We can't wait for anybody. We have to make sure that our young people have a mindset that is strong enough to go out there, personally develop their skills, build it for the future. We are hosting dangerous times ahead, and believe you me, if care is not taken, I read a book recently, Skills Rather Than Just Degrees, authored by the former Minister of Digital Economy. He talked about hard skills, soft skills, social skills, and the need for us to embark on a rigorous, aggressive paradigm shift, from, yes, certificates, qualifications, but we have to make sure that 60 to 70% of what we teach and expose ourselves to is skills-based, and skills that are, relevant to now and the future. And, after embarking on what I call, like I said earlier, on a very serious, needs assessment for what we actually should be, exposing ourselves to in terms of the skill set. But this cannot be achieved if we don't have that growth mindset in our young people.
Dr. Sabe and Mr. Salau, very quickly, I'd like you both to speak to this and then we'll wrap it up. How much should we consider the place of culture and our different peculiar environmental, peculiarities in this conversation around green skills for young people. How peculiar or how important are cultural environments and influences in getting this done? 30 seconds.
Well, I think this is a wonderful perception, because culture is a way of life, and I think majorly respect, tolerance, and identify that whatever it is your background is, we are all one people. Progress doesn't know tribe, religion, or culture. Development doesn't know same. However, we have to all understand that whatever culture you're inclined to, it has to be what can you do to contribute to development, and make sure that you become a vanguard of development for the bigger picture, for the macro accessibility of Nigerians from your culture. And when we respect and tolerate one another with this view of progress, I think it will just be pockets of everybody making, different waves, and collectively will be a better people in years and decades to come.
All right, Mr. Salau, your take.
Yeah, I think culture is actually very important, and with the diverse culture we have in Nigeria, there is need for us to use that as an advantage for our own good, especially when we talk about green skills. And this is where everybody comes together to play a role, because whether we like it or not, different cultures really helps to strengthen a lot of things we're actually talking about. So let us use our culture, let us use our identity, let us use what we have in our various localities and environment and communities and our regions to encourage young people, to encourage older people, to encourage every one of us to actually work together collectively, to achieve a very substantial purpose. And whether we like it or not, it is what is happening in a particular region is not what is happening in another particular region.
Absolutely.
So let us identify our own and use it to strengthen what we're actually trying to achieve when it comes to green skills for everyone. Thank you.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for your contribution this morning. Aziz Salau is Executive Director, Community Action for Food. Thank you so much. Aziz Salau is in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time. As well as Dr. Shadi Sabe, who is Vice Chancellor, Iconic Open University, is also Chairman, Board of Directors, Brilliant Footsteps International Academy, both in Sokoto State. Thank you so much for your time, gentlemen, this morning.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, so when we return, we are taking on another topic. Do stay with us.
I did no vex for me. Say I never call you since, but I hope that you are well. I hope you're my caretaker. Every day I pray for you. Make you Papa, God bless you. I never forget you. I go forget you. See my shoulder, make you rest up on me. You know I got you. Now me be your friend in need. Money don't show now. I don't keep some for you. You know go so far. Cause anything I get now for me and you. Yeah. How are you, my friend? How do you do, my friend? I know sometimes it feel like say nobody sent you. That's why I take for you, my friend. Remy Atata, you always stay in my mind. Padi me gone. I cherish you with my life. Don't worry yourself, oh. Everything go day alright. And if anybody try you, know it's gonna be on sight. See my shoulder, make you rest up on me. You know I got you. Let me be your friend in need. Money don't show now. I don't keep some for you. You know go so far. Cause anything I get now for me and you, yeah. How are you, my friend? I see you, my brother. How do you do, my friend? See my sister. But sometimes you feel like say nobody sent you. That's when I market to you. A good woman is a blessing from above. Her type will not there for market to you. I told you more, Yaku. One year batrako is a silver. Yano more, does Yaku. 1 year batrako does Yaku. Always loving everybody, no discrimination. What I did, man, no competition. Come and see the blessings of the Lord. Everyone Yamaka, Moses in a Kachukudia. Everyone Yamaka, only this in a Kachukudia. A good woman no come from the Lord. Honey, more, this is a blessing from above. Honey, more,
The woman holding this baby is not her mother. The woman the baby is being passed on to did not birth her. And the man whose wife took possession of the baby, he isn't a father either. All three of them trading the baby do not know her next destination. The cries you hear are those of a baby born in eastern Nigeria, sold to a couple in the southwest who have no established home address, occupation, friends, or relatives. An innocent baby sold into the unknown world in exchange for 2 million naira. A backdoor sale backed up by the payment of entitlement to the police and the judiciary. A life or cash transaction initiated by people claiming to be working for God, who are instead firing arrows at God. Arrows of God, an undercover investigation by Fisayo Shoyombo.
Let's just go straight into the conversation with Fisayo Shoyombo this morning. Arrows of God, the documentary. Fisayo Shoyombo is founder, Foundation for Investigative Journalism. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. He joins us from our Abuja studio. 19 months and counting. How's the trip been?
Sorry, please take that again.
I said 19 months. I said, first of all, welcome. Thanks for joining us. But 19 months of investigative journalism. How's it been?
Yeah, different emotions. There were times when it was about curiosity, about finding out if my tip-off was correct or not. There were times when it was about whether our cover had been blown or not, because there was a 7-month gap during which they didn't, speak to us. There were times if we wondered if it was more dangerous than we thought. When we started to hear things like we will get documents for the baby, but we have to pay entitlements to the police and the court, we started to imagine that it was a ring that was bigger than us. There were times when I also felt we could extend it further to, for instance, try to find out the identity of the mother of the baby that was given to us. Who exactly is she? We still don't know. The extent to which the police were involved, the extent to which the judiciary was involved. And it got to a point we thought, okay, fine, we can't know everything. We do know a bit. We didn't know for a fact that it wasn't a one-off occurrence. Arrows of God had been doing it. We do know for a fact that we got a baby. we paid. We do know for a fact that it's not even a case of a lack of due diligence. There was an absence of any sort of diligence. Nobody attempted to know my house. Nobody attempted to know where I worked. Nobody verified anything. So it was purely about, you have the money, we have a baby to give you. And we thought that was enough. After putting it out, we then expect the relevant agencies to take it forward and say, at this point in time, what more can we do? Can we find the mother? Can we arrest the culprits? Can we dig out more information? So we did our job up to a point, and we expect that the relevant agencies, if they are serious enough, can take it forward.
Okay. There are some people wondering, what in the universe is this fella talking about? So, first of all, for 19 months, you studied, trailed, investigated, and eventually penetrated a Christian orphanage that had been selling babies under the table. Tell us how the story started. We understand you got your tip-off December of 2 years ago, 2021. Tell us how all of that started for you and how far so far.
Yes, so a couple who wanted to adopt a baby, we billed 1.5 million naira by Arrows of God Orphanage, and then they told someone who told someone who told someone who told me. As a matter of fact, I do imagine that couple might have read the story and might be thinking, oh, it happened to us, without knowing that it's actually their story that led to this investigation. Because the person, my informant, is the fourth in the chain. And then said, okay, but let's not just make assumptions. Let's follow the trail. Let's find out. So what I did was find someone to be my wife, and then, my wife in quote, and then we went to the orphanage. They gave us a phone number, happened to be the phone number of the founder, who is an ordained minister, a reverend, a former matron, retired high-ranking officer in the Nigerian Army. So we started to make phone calls. From the very first conversation, she had told us, it's in the East that you are coming to buy your baby. From the very first phone conversation.
Just to be clear,
there wasn't yet the
just to be clear, one second, Fisayo. You said he told you it's in the East you're coming to buy. Was that the word used, or was just?
Yes. The exact word is buy. If you watch the documentary, you would hear it, both the transcription and the voice. It's in the East you are coming to buy that one. And so there have been people who have, who've read the story or watched the documentary and have said, oh, they didn't sell a baby to you, there was an adoption. No. From the very first conversation, it was, it's in the East you are coming to buy that one.
So then, I'm just lost right now, because I can't just imagine that. So that process started for you. What did you discover in the process? I know, for you, by the way, watching us, you have to watch this documentary tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. on Channels Television. But for today, what are the things that you discovered that, you've spoken about systemic gaps that didn't protect these children. Would you say this is just a one-off case, or there could be others like that in various parts of the nation?
This absolutely is not a one-off case. So the good news is that it's not all orphanage that is badly run. There were 3 orphanage homes that we tried to reach, and they told us from the start that, look, you have to go speak to the government, not to us. One of them is Mercy, something Mercy. It's in Egbeda in Lagos. There's another orphanage in Maryland, Faramobi Ajike Street. I can't remember the name right now. And then there's a third orphanage in Palm Grove. The one in Maryland was so professional that as we were entering, we knew they were not going to, So yes, there are very well-run orphanages in Nigeria. But Arrows of God can't possibly be the only orphanage that sells babies without doing due diligence.
So that challenge is there. And then how about the institutional gaps? What are the things that ought to happen from what you found out, going by what happened in these exceptions that you talked about, or rather, should I say, the norm, which is the well-run orphanages? What is the process you found, and what are the gaps you found in this one where babies are being sold?
So for me, the well-run orphanages have only taken a deliberate and an intentional decision to operate by ethical standards. Nigeria generally is a country where you have to personally decide to play by the rules if you have to, because for every single day you get reasons from the government, from public institutions to do things through the back door. Now, policy-wise, it can't be possible that it is so difficult without connection, without funds, to adopt a baby in good time from the government. So when that is not happening, then people find alternatives. One of what I did was to go to the Ministry of Youth, Alausa, to say I wanted to adopt a baby in November 2022. They sent me a text message the following month. Since then, I haven't heard from them. So imagine you made an application for adoption to government, and in 8 months, there was nothing. So if someone told you of a faster way to get a baby, you would want to try it. So the first thing is that government has to recognize that if the process for adoption is stiff, unnecessarily long, it has to be long because a lot of due diligence has to be done, but it can't be unnecessarily long. It can't be that for 8 months you don't hear from government. I interviewed a lady who had tried to adopt for 2 years. She got the first contact from government after 2 years. So if you wait 2 years and government doesn't reach out to you and you hear of another alternative, you do it. So the most important thing that needs to happen as a result of this investigation is for government to understand that that process has to be simplified, has to be faster, has to be straightforward. People have to find it accessible, whether they are rich or middle class. When that is done, then the motivation, the market for fast sale of babies will go down. Now, with Arrows of God, the things I found out, one is from the first day, they used the word buy. That's number one. Number two, from the first day, they made it clear that I was coming to the east, meaning that it's a strategy meaning that Lagos is a smokescreen. Lagos is used to attract the rich people, and then they are moved to the east, because from day one they said, you are coming to the east. Number three is that there was absolutely no due diligence. I can't imagine that someone showed up in my house to say they wanted to take care of my cousin, my niece, not even my child, but my cousin, my niece for a week. I would want to know their home. I would want to know what they do. I would want to know where they work. Right now, the orphanage haven't spoken to me since July 6, when I got the baby. They don't know where to find me. The address in Lagos that I put there, they didn't send someone there to go and knock on that door and say, is this man a ritualist? Is he an organ trafficker? Or does he really need a baby? They didn't do due diligence. They don't know where I work. Okay. They can't mention one of my colleagues. They can't mention any friend of mine. So how do you give me a baby? A whole human being, a life. You give it to me without knowing where I live, without knowing where I work, without knowing where to find me. Now, that cannot happen, shouldn't happen in a sane country. And I hope the authorities are going to take a step.
Oh, most certainly.
Because
they will watch,
if nothing is done...
they will watch this documentary tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. And it is something that we'll still talk about a little more often. But you mentioned something earlier. We have just about 5 minutes for this. You mentioned something earlier about the institutions that are one way or the other indicted in your findings. You talked about the police, you talked about the judiciary, you talked about government organizations or agencies that ought to do their due diligence. What is this something that you think each of them should come out and speak to or defend themselves or what? Because even just from the trailer, the promoting the program already on our channel tomorrow, we could see that they talk to us about that page that talked about the police, just as one of those agencies in that ought to have been involved in the process.
This is Channels Television, your home for the news. We now interrupt our regular programming to bring you a live coverage of the commissioning of the John Odige Oyego Public Service Academy by the Edo State government. Do stay with us.
Of its establishment. Let's welcome Anthony Osas Okungbowa, Esquire, the head of service, Edo State, the #1 civil servant, our great motivator. Please, a round of applause. Your Excellency, we have Senator Eige Edoba Uzame is here with us. We have Senator Roland Owie also here with us. We have civil commissioners of Edo State and other members of the Executive Council. We have permanent secretaries of the Edo State government and other distinguished guests. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me with every sense of apology, let me welcome the chairman of the People's Democratic Party of Edo State, Dr. Tony Azegbemi. Please, a round of applause. We are sorry, sir. I didn't know you were sitting on this side. Thank you so much, sir. Let's also welcome the chairman of the MBA, Nusa Osage Esquire. Please, a round of applause. We have the president of the World Medical Association, Dr. and Mrs. Osahon Inabulili. Please, a round of applause. We have Mr. Daniel Ine in the house. Please, a round of applause. We have here in the house, please permit me, because the names were written in this order and it became so choked. Please, with every sense of respect, our father, an elder statesman in Nigeria, please put your hands together for the retired head of service of the Federation, Mr. Stephen Oronsaye. Please, a round of applause. We also have Mr. Clement Alile, former Secretary to the State Government, is here with us. Please, a round of applause. We have the Mr. Speaker of the Edo State House of Assembly, represented by Honorable Donald Okogbe. Please, a round of applause. Honorable Donald Okogbe is representing Akoko Edo constituency 2. Thank you so much. Well, we are going to do more introductions later on, but at this juncture, let me respectfully, with every sense of honor and pride, to be part of this event, invite the man who dreamed and it became true. The dream came to pass. What we are seeing here today is the edifice that was conceptualized and actualized by the Otoknadu. I call him the philosopher governor of Edo State, the best in Nigeria, as acclaimed by over 10 international bodies within and outside Nigeria. The John Odigie Oyegun Public Academy, to be commissioned by His Excellency. And to do that introduction, let me welcome James Usage Uriri.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you see the dividend of Memorandum of Understanding? Ladies and gentlemen, can you see what the technocrat in power has done? Is this I saw or I will do? Have you seen the wait and see governor conceptualizing and bringing into friction what will make the Edo State civil servant digitally oriented? And who else can this edifice be named after than a man who himself is an epitome of civil service distinction, a federal permanent secretary retired, and when he contested as governor of Edo State, what was the hallmark? Can you see my white beard? This white beard, he told us, was experience. And he became the first executive governor of Edo State. His Excellency Chief John Ewoyoma Kenneth Odigie Oyegun. Public Service Academy, made popular, made possible by the wait and see governor of Edo State. Can everybody shout wait and see? Have you woken up to see the Public Service Academy arriving, the mother of Edo State that is giving support to our governor? Ladies and gentlemen, can you make a rousing welcome to our Excellency Betsy Obaseki, the First Lady of Edo State, and our mother. Can you please make the applause resounding for her? Ladies and gentlemen, on the birthday of a great man, history is about to be made in the formal opening and commissioning. Very rare in this administration, because Mr. Governor does not believe in commissioning project. Once the project is done and the people are using it, it has been commissioned. Now we are approaching the moment. Now we are approaching the time. History is about to be made. Can we all please rise as we invite Their Excellency to perform this historic assignment, the official opening and commissioning of the John Odigie Oyegun Public Service Academy. The rest of you just remain standing where you are as we invite Their Excellency to please approach to do this epoch historic event. Can you please make the applause resounding?
But you're not picking my call no more. You know they're picking my call no more. No more. Don't you forget it, my heart. I've been calling you, calling you, calling you, calling you.
sure. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, to commission this academy, the John Odige Oyegun Public Service Academy, for the prosperity of Edo State, for the progress of Edo State, for the development and happiness of the people of Edo State, and that by the grace of the Almighty God, it will eventually become a lighthouse to the Nigerian nation. In the name of the Father, I call this tape. In the name of the Son, this building will be blessed. And in the name of the Holy Spirit, may all those who pass through this poster, the portals of this academy, prosper.
The official unveiling and reading of the plaque is about to be done now, and His Excellency will continue the good work he has started. Can you put your hands together as he reads what is there?
Built by the Governor, Godwin Nogegase Obaseki administration, and commissioned by Chief Odige Oyegun on this blessed day, Saturday, the 12th of August, in the year 2023. And this was manufactured in Igun Street.
The bronze was done in Igu Street, Benin City, Edo State. Can you put your hands together for the excellencies? The inspection of the facilities now, and only those that have been so assigned will join, while the rest of us will salve all the sweetness of the moment with wonderful music. As Emuwa Ajono, the Director General of these establishments, will take the excellencies around in a guided tour.
If you dance, I go dance too.
A guided tour of the facility is now. The guided tour of the facility is now. May we respectfully invite His Excellency, the Romanian ambassador to Edo and Delta States, the Isama of the universe. Can you put your hands together for His Excellency as he joined Mr. Governor, my Lord, the Honorable Justice Samson Waifo, Justice of the Supreme Court, retired, to also join Your Excellency to inspect this amazing facility, my Lord. The Honorable Justice Momo, the Honorable Justice Joe Isebaga Acha, the State Chairman of the PDP, Dr. Tony Isaac Baby, Dr. Clement Alila, former Secretary to the Government of Edo States, Distinguished Senator Roland Stephen Owe and his dear wife, to also please join. The Honorable Justice Otabo Lubo will also be expected to join. Honorable Dr. John Richard Iyasere, the head of Agbarauto Kingdom, one of the great investors in Edo State, will also be required to join. Mr. Dan Ine, Very Reverend Father Dr. Edwin Omorogbe and very Reverend Father Dr. Michael Oyanuafo should also please join their excellencies. The Chairman, Christian Association of Nigeria, Edo State Chapter, Apostle Omoike, to also please join. Vice Chancellor of the University of Benin, represented by Professor Obama, to also please join. My Lord Bishop Yahweh, presiding Bishop from the Church of God Mission, will also join. My Lord Bishop, Bishop Yahweh. The former Speaker at Bahia is also with all the right honorable. Reverend Morege of the New Covenant Gospel Church will also require to join. The Commissioner, Judicial Service Commission, Daily Adokbai Esquire, and the Chairman of the NBA Benin Bar, Rotarian Osaido Saige, should also see that this indeed is a reality. Please honor us with your presence to join their excellencies. Thank you.
Me, I don't like wahala. Jump like that, cruise whatever. My nature will grow yadaba. On my belly, the sakaba. See, me, I don't like wahala. All the days I want reach Panama. If you the hate, waka go wagada. On my belly, the sakaba. Sakaba. Okay, me sakaba. Oh yeah, sakaba. So when I'm there, I'm going sakaba. Sakaba.
C'est pas Bluetooth, ouais. La Tesla qui pulling up in the Tesla, ouais. Two beats, ouais. See, no go deep. First day looking, no go deep. Charlie Poppy, I walk on it. Bluetooth many I will fly all day. Inside that yo, if ya so. Another if ya day inside that yo, if ya. Another if ya day inside that yo, if ya so. Another if ya day inside that yo, if ya. Another if ya day inside, don't you sell almost quest. Para the body, BTC the body, money the body. Don't you sell almost quest. Para the body, BTC the body. It's the remix of the remix.
Distinguished guests, we say thank you for being here. Photographers, videographers, we ask you to take your place now, please. The proceedings are about to begin. Those who are standing at different corners, please take your seats. Ushers, please do well to engage some people movements where people should not be. Let's have them relocate. Cameramen and women, please. We need some decorum. We need some decorum. Thank you. Thank you. Waited patiently. Guests, we are so honored, we are so delighted to have you here with us at JUPSA. What a delight. Introductions have been made, a guided tour of the facilities has been done. To welcome us formally, distinguished guests, is a woman that I like, love, admire, an unapologetic learner, committed to upskilling and capital development. She is skilled in learning. She's also a development expert, a change manager, a curriculum creator, and she is the Pioneer Director General right here at JUPSA. Please warmly receive Precious Simoe Ajonu.
Good morning, Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State. Good morning, Your Excellency. Good morning, Your Excellency, the man of Miguel Yegu. Good morning, Mrs. Victoria. Thank you for being here. Very honored. Good morning, our chairman of the occasion, Honorable Bifo, and that I understand. Please permit me to start on all. His Excellency has given us a mandate now to teach protocol here. So I will be in that class as well. Thank you, because learning is continuous. On behalf of His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Edo State, I want to sincerely welcome all of us to what we like to call a dream that its time has come. His Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, always says that the civil and public service is the engine of government. If you're a young person like me, who is trying or who is overwhelmed with some of the issues that face Nigeria, you ask yourself, where do we start? What we like to think is that JUPSA is a start. JUPSA, named after a living legend, by the way, it's an honor, sir, Chief John Odige Oyegu, was founded to strengthen the public service institution through capacity building. Many scholars argue that we will not go very far until we have strengthened our institutions. And that's what we have to do. They are immediately invited into a different experience. And it's intentional. We want to be that place that you come to where you are looking for premium public service excellence. Where you come to where you want to learn. We want to go back to those days. His Excellency said that we are making Edo great again. And we go back
indefatigable, making sure everything is working as promised. Please appreciate our DG once again. Distinguished guests, I would like to welcome for his opening remarks, who I like to refer to as the chief beneficiary of JUPSA, fully committed to ensuring that the public and civil service is upskilled toward making Edo great again. Welcome with me the head of service, the fine gentleman, Mr. Anthony Okumboa, Esquire.
Your Excellency, the Governor of Edo State, Your Excellency, the wife of the Governor of Edo State, Your Excellency, the first civilian governor of Edo State, and Her Excellency, the wife of the first civilian governor of Edo State, permit me to stand, as we say in this part, on the already well-created protocol. Mine is to just have a small opening remark this morning. Mrs. Emuwahe, the Director General of JUPSA, has spoken extensively about what I'm told that I have just 5 minutes. I prepared a speech to read, but I just have to speak to it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, what we are seeing here today is just a small part of the efforts that have been made by Mr. Governor and the government of Edo State to develop in its entirety the civil and the public service of Edo State. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, yesterday at dinner with Mr. Governor, the keynote speaker for today, Sir Steve Oronsaye, made a comment. He said, Your Excellency, if the John Odigye Oyegun Public Service Academy is the only thing that you have done, then you have done well. Almost immediately after that, someone said, have you seen the Secretariat? Indeed, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this is just one part of the many good things that this government has done for us in the civil and public service of Edo State. When we say that our governor is the best governor in Nigeria, we say it emphatically and with every sense of responsibility and without any equivocation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will just use the remaining period to talk about what this government has done so that you can see that beyond the intellectual property resource development of the service, which is key to us in service, a lot has been done. And that is why we have no doubts in our minds that what this government has done is unprecedented in the history of the state and indeed in the whole of this country. So I'll just quickly go through. First of all, have you seen